Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Chad Calek, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 14. Which in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about ufology, because when I woke up this morning, I saw all kinds of news clips on the web, on YouTube, about this UFO sighting that just happened in Gloucester, England. And I hope I'm saying this the right way, because it's spelled Gloucester. So I'm hoping that's a bit like Worcester, Mass, Gloucester, England. If I'm not saying it the right way, I apologize. But essentially, this news story is everywhere right now, where two separate pilots were flying around doing nighttime activities, whatever that is, test activities, and they both saw one red square light and one orange square light, in which they were both doing maneuvers to try to, get a good look at these things and intercept them to see exactly what they were, in which they were initially stationary, but as they got closer, they avoided them, in which these pilots were surprisingly open about it. They wrote about it on their Facebook page. One of them was talking openly to the press about it, and it was just everywhere. It was on all the UFO websites. I think Tyler Glockner on Security Team did something on it as well too. And it just blew my mind how open the media is to this now. And it made me think about this whole concept, which was touched upon in Two-Face the Gray, of this pending, forthcoming fake alien invasion, because supposedly a real alien invasion is coming, and the world, should be united to take on this pending war. Now, that's a big concept, and we can touch a little bit on it later on. But what I want to start with is how fascinating it is to me that the concept of aliens being real is all but acknowledged by the press and the media. When I grew up, whenever there were UFO stories on the news, it was always to make fun of people. It was always like, oh God, tinfoil hat, here we go. And, news anchors would, joke about it the whole time. Ooh, worried about their credibility. But now this was just like a normal news story. Like, was this from outer space? Was this an alien? They were talking about it with no humor at all, which was honestly good to see, because through the research that I did for Two-Face the Gray, a lot of things became really obvious to me. First off, let's start with the question, are aliens real? Okay. Now, when I was growing up, I remember being in school and being told that there were no known planets that were sister planets to Earth. There was nothing out there that we knew of that had the same atmosphere, that had water, nothing. Then I do remember in college when I read this news story about how they discovered possibly eight other sister planets, they called, that were in the Goldilocks region. The Goldilocks region is basically planets that they go around a sun, they have water, they have an atmosphere and temperatures that human beings could live in. So there was 8. Then I remember an article that there was 400, they thought now. And the most recent data from the Kepler telescope suggests that there could be up to 40 billion sister planets in the Goldilocks zone. 40 billion with the same exact water, temperature, all that stuff that could sustain human life. So it starts to become somewhat ridiculous to think that we're the only people in the universe. So I think the numbers, and the research and the data now have caught up to the point where the math indicates that there's definitely life out there. The question would be, can they contact us? And I think that answer to that question is just about longevity. If there's other civilizations, have they been around for 1 billion years, 100,000 years, 10 million years? I mean, look at the leaps in technology that we've made in just my lifetime. I mean, my daughter is never going to understand what I mean when I say there was once no internet. She's going to be like, what are you talking about? She's never going to understand that. When I tell her that there was once no cell phones, that we used to all sit around and wait for people to call and make calls, and how call waiting was worth its weight in gold. Look at the technological jumps that have been made just in the last, 50 years. So say there is a civilization out there, and they are just 10,000 years older than us. In space-time, that's nothing, right? That's a blip. But look at the amount of ingenuity in just 50 years. Now add 10,000 years. The idea that someone would contact us or find out how, I don't think that's crazy at all, especially when you look at human nature. The nature of human beings is to explore. We've been trying to do it for a long time. Seeing what is out there. That is an innate desire. And when it comes to why would they be secret, that's always a question I hear too. Why would they be so secretive if they were out there? Well, first off, think about this. If a UFO right now landed in western Nebraska, who would know? Who would know? Most of the land on Earth is wide open. So these, visitors could be coming nonstop to a billion regions on the Earth, and no one would see it. No one would know. It's true. No one would know. And if they did decide to land in an area that, has a large population, well, let's just flip it around. Let's say you and I were out there in the universe trying to find life. That's what we were tasked with. That was our job, to go find life. Say we come across the planet that has life. Say we find an area on that planet with a large population. Would it be smart to just drop wheels right in the middle of everybody, hop off, our spaceship and start waving our hands saying, hello, hello? I mean, the one thing that was demonstrated very well, I feel, in Two-Face the Gray, is that historically speaking, humankind, when we don't know what something is, we shoot at it. We try to kill it and ask questions later. We've done that historically since the dawn of time, and not just with things in the air that we don't understand. We show up, we find something different than us, we kill it. So would it be smart, knowing, the history of human nature, if we were the aliens searching for other life and we came across a large civilization, would it be smart to do everything we could in our power to remain hidden while we observe? Or to just land and hop off our ship? So it makes total sense to me that if we were being visited, we either wouldn't know that they were coming and leaving, or that they would do everything in their power to remain hidden. And who knows what that technology is? Just think of the cloaking technology that's going to exist in just 20 years from now. They already have, you can watch this on the web, they already have invisible clothing. The Marines use it. You could literally put it on and you are invisible. They have this. This exists. And it's just like the Predator, man. They put this thing on, you can just walk around. So what are they going to have in 100 years from now? I don't find anything bizarre about the fact that a race could be visiting us and we would not know. But I can tell you this. When I visited the UFO ranch up in Trout Lake, Washington, the Assetti Ranch of James Gilliland, I was there once for an event. I was there to film the episode of Paranormal State. I was floored by what I saw, because clearly some type of craft is flying in and out of the atmosphere. And you could see the burn. I mean, it just becomes massively bright, and then it gets massively dark, almost down to like the size of a pinhead. And it would glow as bright as a silver dollar when it would come through. And my honest opinion that night when I was out there is that we're looking at our technology, military technology. That's what I thought when I was there. And there's nothing to say that that technology isn't back engineered either. When you start thinking about the universe using infinite math, right? Infinite. The human mind struggles with that. We don't do well with big numbers. Like if I say to you 50 million years from now, 100 million years from now, 2 billion years from now, 12 trillion years, that just all sounds big to us, right? But if I say 1 week from now, 2 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we all can understand and wrap our minds around that. So when it comes to what's possible with infinite numbers, well, everything becomes possible. Everything. So why would I not believe that there is another civilization that's visiting us and has been since the beginning? Why would we not believe that it's possible that another civilization created us? These things are all possible. So why were we ever laughing about it on the news? Why were people ever being made fun of? But the even better question is, why are they not being made fun of right now? Why are these pilots suddenly talking to the press about what they saw? It almost felt like this thing was manufactured, like it was a planted story. And there's a reason that I think this. I'm going to tell you a true story of something that happened to me in Chicago that I thought of right when I read this story this morning. And it's actually kind of a funny story, but it ended with a fascinating conversation. I was with a band that I managed in Chicago, and we ended up getting stuck on the runway, on the tarmac, for a long time because of storms. And throughout that entire time, there was a steward that kept coming back, and a very nice guy. And he was like, "You guys doing okay? Do you want a soda? Do you want, candy, chips, whatever?" Very nice dude. And we were stuck on the tarmac for close to 5 hours. Well, through this back and forth conversation with him, eventually he just came up and there was a seat open next to me, and he sat down next to me. He was like, "So, what do you do?" And at that time, like I said, I was a band manager, and I was with a band that I managed. And I was like, "Yeah, they're musicians, and I'm trying to help them, make their dreams come true and get that record deal." And we just got in a long conversation about Hollywood and different places, and just the lifestyle in different cities. And I started asking him about what it's like, being a steward and flying all over the place, and just had I thought a genuinely awesome conversation. And, eventually our flight was actually grounded. So after spending like 5 hours on the tarmac, we find out we're not going anywhere. Our flight's not going to leave till tomorrow morning. And I'm like, geez, I just want to get home so bad. And you get off the plane, I get in line, I tell the guys to just hang out. I'm being a good manager. I'm like, I'll get this figured out. I'll get our hotel room, blah, blah, blah. And I just know what this is going to be. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. These kids are going to want to party and rock out in their free hotel rooms. And I get 2 vouchers for rooms. I was hoping I got 3. I turn around and I see the steward. And he says, "Hey, what's up?" And I go, "Oh, man." I really hope they were going to give us more hotel rooms, because these guys are going to want to party, and I just want to chill and have a relaxed night. And he goes, "Well, why don't you just let them stay at the hotel room and you stay somewhere else?" And I go, "Well, I would, but they only gave us 2 rooms, and we just got to, pack into them." And he was like, "Well, you don't got to stay there." And it's kind of quiet, and I'm not understanding what he's saying. And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. They just gave me these hotel vouchers." And there's a pause, and he looks at me and he goes, "Well, I'm just saying you could stay with me." And I'm thinking in my head right away, at first I'm going, "Man, you're a nice dude, because that's dangerous as hell. Like, you don't even know me, And then it hits me, oh, wait a minute. This dude's gay. And maybe I just have like terrible gaydar or something, but it never crossed my mind. I am someone that is extremely comfortable with my sexuality. I don't even think about it. It doesn't matter to me if someone's straight or gay. Like, I don't care. I totally judge people on just their character and who they are. So it had never even crossed my mind that when he kept coming to hang out with us on the plane and wanted to sit next to me, at some point I must have done something to give him the idea that I was gay. And I'm thinking to myself, God, how do I say this, to him, that I'm not gay? And finally I just realized that the best way to handle this stuff is to be upfront, because I'm not upset. I'm not mad. Like, to me, if a gay guy or a girl find you attractive, you should not be offended in any way. I mean, it's just someone saying you're attractive. So I'm not offended in any way. I just don't want him to be offended. I don't want to hurt his feelings. And I don't know what to say, so I just say it. I go, hey, wait a minute. I go, are you asking me to stay at your place because you're gay? And he looks at me really nervous and he goes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I go, no, no, no. I go, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. I go, listen, it's cool. I go, but I'm straight. I am, but I don't want you to be upset. I'm like, it's all good. He goes, you know what? No, I should have just, I guess, asked you straight out. I go, no, it's cool. I go, I appreciate the offer. And I go, I'm going to say no. And it's not because you're gay. It's just because I don't know you. And that just seems kind of scary to me, you know? And he's like, I totally understand. And I just felt like shit. I felt like shit. He looked hurt, you know? And I said, but here's the deal. I'm like, well, they've already told us it's going to be, a couple hours before our luggage gets to us because it's, somewhere, in the airport. I go, so it's going to be a couple hours before our bags come. I go, if you want to like grab a coffee or something, I go, I'm hungry. I want to grab a sandwich. And I'm like, we can just hang out a little bit. I go, but, I don't want you to be upset or anything. And I'm not upset with you. And he's like, are you sure? And I go, yeah. I go, listen, we can just I'm going to grab a bite right over here. And it was just one of those little snacky shop things with, just little chairs and whatever. So he's like, yeah, okay. And we got to talking right away. And we did have a conversation about why he thought I was gay. And he just said it was just conversational, that I was just being so nice to him. And that he thought he clearly stood out as gay, which perhaps he did, I don't know. And he felt as though he was making soft advances, that's how he said it, and that I wasn't turning them away, which, I didn't even see the advances. So, long story short, we end up just talking about, everything in life, where we're from, all this stuff, and eventually we got onto the topic of UFOs. And again, I don't even remember how we got there except to say we had a long conversation. And I said to him, have you ever seen anything when you're up there? And he's kind of quiet and he's stirring his coffee. And I remember right when I asked him that question, he stopped stirring it. And he just kind of looked up at me and he goes, well, I don't know. Why do you ask? And I go, no, I'm just wondering. I mean, I've always felt like if there's UFOs flying around, the people that should be reporting them all the time would be stewards, stewardesses, and pilots. They're the ones that are up in the sky all the time. And he goes, you don't work for the airlines, right? You really don't. I go, no, not at all, man. I go, I don't. And he goes, well, I just want to be honest with somebody because, I get asked this all the time and I always say no, But the truth is, he goes, we see stuff all the time. All the time. I'm like, really? He goes, Chad, we see things all the time. All the time. I go, all the time? He goes, yes. I go, so in a month, if you flew every day, like how many times is all the time? And he goes, 4 or 5 times a month. I go, you're kidding me. And he goes, no. He goes, there's stuff up there flying around that none of us know what it is. He goes, I assume some of it's military. He was like, but I know for a fact a lot of it isn't. I go, well, how do you know that? It's quiet. I'm like, how do you know that? And he goes, we had an experience going from New York to London that I will never forget. I go, okay. And he goes, we had just left New York. We were probably only off the ground for a good hour. And he goes, and I notice everybody on the right side of the plane is looking out their window and they're all talking about something that they're clearly seeing. And he goes, I look out, and there's a large disc-shaped object that's probably twice the size of our plane. And he goes, I am like, good Lord, what is that? And he goes, and as I'm watching it, it moves way, way, way to the front of the plane past it, like it flies forward faster than the plane. And he goes, and from the back of it, I could see that it's shifting in front of us, like it's going to be in front of the nose. He goes, I just beeline my way to the front of the cockpit. I open the door. I step in, look out the window. And he goes, you could hear a pin drop. the pilots are dead quiet because they can't believe what they're seeing. And he basically went on to describe that as they were flying forward, this thing had moved out in front of their nose and was flying with them, but directly in front of them, which they didn't know what to do because their fear is that they were going to run into this thing. But it always stayed a safe distance away. And I go, well, what happened? It was in a split second. It took off just like a rocket. Just boom, it was gone. And we couldn't see it anymore. I go, Jesus. He's like, yeah. I said, well, what happened with all the people on the plane that saw it? Why wasn't this a massive news story? I mean, this is huge. He goes, when we were landed, he goes, all I know is I was taken into a room. He goes, I was questioned about the event. And I was told that I was not to speak a word to anybody, no matter what. And I go, okay. I go, but what about the people on the plane? And he goes, they were each taken into the same room I went into. I go, okay, well, when was this? He goes, about 4 years ago. I go, wow. And you've seen a bunch of stuff since then? And he goes, oh, I see stuff all the time. He goes, so do pilots. He goes, we all know the truth, but we're all terrified to speak about it. I go, well, why are you telling me? And he goes, I guess I just had to tell somebody. He's like, I don't want to lie to you. You're just telling me about it. I don't want to lie to you. I go, wow. And you know, part of me could actually understand that. If you see something fantastic like that and you've got to sit on it and you're afraid that, people are going to harm you or something if you say it, it would become that burning secret that you would be dying to tell. And you would want to tell it to somebody that you know has no connection to your industry or anything like that. And he had no idea that I had an infatuation with the paranormal, that I was interested in it. He just knew I was a band manager and I was working with a young band from the Midwest. So I could actually kind of see why he would be dying to tell someone. But yeah, that's what he said. He said that pilots and stewards see stuff all the time. Now, the reason the Gloucester, England news and their UFO sighting jarred this memory in my head is because clearly now pilots are openly talking about what they're seeing. And like with the Tic Tac UFO footage, that was the one that Tom DeLonge released, one of the 3 that he released. That was off the USS Nimitz. That pilot they rolled out, that David Fravor, he rolled out and talked about it all openly. And I'm like, why is it that now suddenly pilots are openly talking about UFO sightings that they had? And now the press is openly reporting stories about UFO sightings and speaking about it without even a hint of sarcasm. There is a reason that the media is now treating UFO stories this way. The narrative has changed. Now, if you haven't seen Two-Faced to Grey, or if you have, a big part of the story is that there's a lot of things that suggest that there's going to be a false alien invasion. This is information given to me. This isn't something that I came up with. And what's really interesting about it is this is something that's been suggested for a long time, dating all the way back to Wernher von Braun. On his deathbed, he said this was coming. To President Reagan, at the United Nations, saying the words, I often think, how the world would come together as one world if we were under a threat from an alien race. And that's true, because if you think about the one world government, from the dawn of time, whether you're talking Alexander the Great to Napoleon, all the way up to from Genghis Khan to Hitler, everybody's always wanted this one world government. Truthfully, the only scenario that I could see that would work would be is if mankind as a whole was facing a distinction level threat. Then I could see that it would be possible that this could happen. These are big concepts, and I understand that, and it could be all wrong. It could be just a lot of cherry-picked information colliding with possibilities. And as technology advances, our minds advance as far as what we see as possible. All of this could be wrong. But for sure, the narrative has changed. did not change on its own. I think the biggest question that we have to ask ourselves is, why has it changed? Why? Thank you for listening to episode 14 of the In a Crowded Room podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with more. All the best.